Great. So welcome. Joe and I are going to be talking to you today about your successful job search and how to structure it using some tools and timelines. We're going to be giving you some practical ideas. If you have questions along the way, put them in the chat box and we'll either answer them as we go or we'll save them to the end. So let's get started. I'm Lisa Dichter and I work with the undergraduate mechanical engineering students.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Battellini, and I'm a consultant for the Dietrich College students here on campus.
So for our agenda today, first we're going to talk to you a little bit about some successful search strategies in general. We'll get a little bit more specific and talk to you about some ideas about tools that you can use for your search. Also, how to have some specific timelines for yourself to keep motivating the process along the way. This can take a little bit of time, and we hope to give you some practical ideas. We'll also be talking to you about some do's and don'ts, how to stay positive, how to stay enthusiastic, and to keep going until you find a job that you're excited about. And then finally, we'll have some time at the end for questions and answers.
Okay, so to start us off, to lay a foundation, we'll talk a little bit about a successful job search and what they may look like. But truth be told, you may get advice from a number of mentors and people along the way, especially us as career consultants. And it can be conflicting at times. You may get a lot of various tips and strategies, but no one way is exactly the right way. And really, the ultimate right way is what's most comfortable for you. So whatever works for you in terms of time and working style, that's the appropriate search style for you. And specifically, in general, we did reach out to our new grads, recent grads, to really understand and survey what they considered to be their top successful search strategies. And what they mentioned is what you see on the screen below. Specifically, preparedness of materials was really key in their overall search process. Everything from the resume to a portfolio, a cover letter, making sure it's polished, free of errors, you name it. Well, of course, quantity. Your number of applications is very critical. So not only is quality important, but also quantity, the frequency at which you're applying online for positions. Because sure enough, the more positions you have time to apply for, the more likely that you will get that response for an interview offer and then eventually a job offer. And of course, too, persistence, always following up. And staying positive. Rejection in a job search is inevitable. It's a reality that we all go through, even myself and Lisa within our own full-time job searches in the past. Rejection will arise. So keeping your head up, moving forward, staying positive, and those applications in line will be really key in your search.
So let's get started with some ideas for some tools for you. The first thing we have for you is an application tracker. We suggest creating an Excel spreadsheet, a Google Doc, any kind of document that's going to help you with this. And throughout the next weeks, months, however long it takes you, this application tracker is going to help keep you motivated. You're going to see your progress. You're going to track it. We do have students who have said to me, Lisa, why do I know where I apply. I can look at my emails and so on. But when you have all of your applications in one place and you open it up and you watch it grow, it's going to keep you organized, it's going to keep you motivated, and every day when you open it up, it's going to focus you so that you can follow along to your plan. Here's an example.
All right. So as Lisa was saying, tracking is pretty important, and here's a sample of what yours could look like. Now, it's completely up to you what type of data points you want to collect and track over time, but the ones you see on the screen are pretty general that we would recommend. So that's everything from the company name, of course, the position title, maybe even a link to the job description that you applied for, the date you applied, how you followed up if you did, the date you did that, and also what your next step is for follow-up, whether that's reaching out to a recruiter or checking on the position, whatever that might include. And I would really encourage you to not only save the URL for each job posting you apply for, but actually I would copy and paste the plain text of that description. And I say that because it is typical for employers to remove a job posting completely once it has expired. So once that position is expired, it's potentially going to go away. So make sure to capture those details as best as you can before it does go away. And that'll be really helpful for you as you try to recall what you did apply for, but then also it would help you apply or prepare for those interview offers as a next step. Okay, so there's a sample tracker. Feel free to amend it, use your own, whether it's through Excel or maybe Google Drive, whatever works for you.
So the next thing for your tools is to get ready some of your materials and to get some templates ready. So what we suggest is to create things and to update things such as your resume, get a sample invitation that you're going to use in LinkedIn. How are you going to message alumni or other contacts in LinkedIn? Get a sample email when you need to follow up with your applications. If you want to start reaching out to family and friends and start networking, get a sample email. If you get all of this ready on your computer, then you won't be able to kind of derail yourself when you go to apply or do something, and then you'll say, oh, well, I'm not really ready to do that yet because I don't have my resume updated, or I don't even know what I would say to someone if I'm going to network with them. So if you get some of these things ready ahead of time, then you won't have a reason not to do it. So those are suggestions. The other thing is get a sample cover letter ready. You could start to practice your virtual interviewing skills. And just remember along the way that your career consultant specific to your college and major or department or school is here. We are here to help you. And we do have samples. So if you would like to see some sample emails or how to follow up, send an email to your consultant and they will help you at any point.
Okay, so when it comes time to actually communicate that message, as Lisa was mentioning, through various ways, methods, templates, it's also really important to understand your value, your worth. You all are talented candidates with a lot of skills to offer. So first and foremost, understand what those skills are and how they relate to the position that you're applying for. So a really good, easy, effective way to do that is to look at that job description and take some time to scroll through, circle keywords that you identify with, and helping the employer and helping yourself understand exactly how you match those requirements. So when it comes time to apply, using that job description to identify the keywords that you would want to incorporate on your resume as well as verbally during an interview. So the interview, just like a resume, everything should be tailored towards what you're going for. So case in point, emphasize transferable skills. Regardless of major, we all have skills that we've achieved and developed over time that are relevant to any employer, regardless of industry, of job function, or whatever that may be. So specifically, the skills that you see on the screen are general top skills that most employers seek. And so we specifically got this list from NACE. NACE stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And every year, NACE actually sends out a survey to its wide network of employers to survey them and asking them, what key top skills do you most value? And based on that survey, that's the list that you see in front of you, or at least the top 5. So communication, of course, critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, collaboration, leadership. So if you are able to convey these skills on your resume, and especially during an interview, you'll make yourself very applicable and relevant to most employer who's wanting to hire you potentially for position. And this is really important to think about as well. Over time, we've seen that job descriptions are becoming a little bit more efficient, a little bit shorter, which means maybe a little bit more vague. That can be common. So if you're ever in that situation where you want to apply for a position, you're not quite sure what they're wanting specifically, feel free to rely on these top skills, and that's really great direction for making you applicable to that position or really any position. So think about those top 5 and how they resonate with you and how you've utilized these during your time at Carnegie Mellon.
So the next thing you want to do in terms of getting ready with some tools is to find some websites you like. We don't really like to say use these exact websites because some students have said to me, Lisa, I really like this one or I don't like that one. So it's up to you to find some sites that you're comfortable with and that work well for your major or industry. in which you're looking. So some ideas, of course, we're going to push handshake. Just keep in mind that employers, even all summer long, are posting new positions. So I'd say check in every couple days or at least once a week in handshake to see if there's any new postings. And that goes for all of these sites. Also, many of these sites allow you to filter in different ways, and especially now that can be important is to filter by remote. I know LinkedIn does that, idealist.org does that, Indeed.com, I'm actually not quite sure, but find some professional organizations. I know within engineering, for instance, ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, has a website and they put job postings on there. The other thing I'd like to mention is we have this great database called CareerShift, and we put it behind Handshake, so alumni or recent grads can have access to that for as long as you'd like. And so you go into Handshake, you have to click on Career Center and then Resources. And this is a database. It has millions of companies in there, and you can search. There are job postings, but you can also search just for companies. So when students say to me, Lisa, don't you just have a list of utilities in Chicago? I'll say, yeah, I do have that list. It's in CareerShift, and you can do your own search. You can also filter in CareerShift by the size of the company. And nowadays that can kind of be important because you may want to look for some smaller companies, or maybe you want to stick with the larger ones, but at least you have a little bit of control. The other thing about CareerShift that works well is that you can look for contact names. So when students say to me, you know, I applied for a position in LinkedIn, but I really want to follow up, how can I find the name of a recruiter to follow up with? You can look in LinkedIn, but if you can't find one in CareerShift, if you search by a company name, you can look for contact names. And within contact names, you can even filter by job title. So you can say, show me everyone in this company that has a job title of human resources or recruiter or talent acquisition. And that way you can find the names to follow up with.
Okay, so now that leads us to the point where you might be ready to apply. Now that we've discussed your skills, your value, what kind of materials you may need and how to prepare those, and also how to find specific positions, as Lisa just mentioned, on various job search tools, we specifically want to share this next website with you before you actually physically apply, or before you click the submit button. Be sure to use this tool. It's one of my favorites, and it's called jobscan.co, not com.co. And it is free. I believe you get free 5 free scans. You can purchase a premium package. You know, that's completely up to you. You don't have to, but with your 5 free scans, you'll get a good sense and an idea of what the tool can offer and how to better tailor your resume. But essentially, JobScan is a tool that mimics what an applicant tracking system does to your resume once you click apply. So everything is virtually online, as we've seen for most employers when you apply online, and that's what's called an applicant tracking system. Now, when you go through the process of applying, your resume is essentially going through a series of algorithms. So the applicant tracking system is literally, quite literally, scanning for keyword matches between your resume and the job description to determine if you're going to be a good fit or match for the position. And believe it or not, it could be where that system or that algorithm decides who gets filtered to HR or who gets filtered out. So as I'm sure you've seen, if you've ever received an automated email rejection or a thank you for applying through your email, that's the applicant tracking system at work. So what you can do to kind of optimize to ensure that you are getting through to a human being, you can use JobScan to optimize your resume. And so what Lisa's showing you here is the inside of JobScan. Lisa, if you want to go ahead and scroll up a little bit.
Oops, I
Oh,
clicked
you're fine. It will take you through, everybody. So if you want to scroll up on the whole page,
Okay.
this is the top of JobScan. And when you scroll down, you can actually copy and paste your resume on the left-hand side and the job description on the right-hand side when you go into the website and scan it. And once you scan it, it will give you this percentage donut or percentage score of how well your resume matches the job description. So for this one, of course, we didn't optimize it for by way of the example, but you can see here that the resume and job description is only a 37% match. Now, the goal is to get to at least 70 or 80% in that score, and that's how you know you've done a pretty good job of tailoring or optimizing your resume. So there's the match rate. Now, if you keep scrolling down, you'll notice even past that, it'll give you various tips and ideas for what words you had used, but maybe what words you forgot to include from the job description. So if you keep scrolling down,
Keep scrolling.
yeah. So a little further, yeah, so hard skills. So right here, you can see it gives you a word for word match. So in the job description, they mentioned spacecraft 3 times, but that wasn't mentioned in the resume. So you may not have spacecraft, necessarily within your experience. That's okay. But the idea is to understand what the job is looking for and ensuring that your resume has those keywords. So essentially, it's just a good self-check before you do click apply. All right. But any questions about JobScan? What do we think? In the chat box, any questions? It's a great tool. No? So if we have more questions about JobScan, we're happy to answer those along the way.
Great. Okay. So those are the tools, and then we thought we'd start with timelines right now. The question that we usually get is, where do I start? How do I start? I could apply to so many different kinds of places. So one suggestion is to create some kind of flow chart that is going to work for you. Now, you have to figure out what's the most important to you. For instance, in this one, we put location at the top as the most important thing. And then within location, maybe you have a couple different industries that you're interested in. And then within those industries, you can look for companies. Career Shift, that database that I mentioned, or that website that's behind Handshake, is a really good way to start finding some companies by industry, because it does have tons of industries in there to help everyone. But what you have to figure out is what's important to you. So let's say you don't care about location, especially now. And so maybe industry is the most important thing. Well, then you want to put industry at the top. And then within industry, maybe there's the next thing that's important to you is size. Maybe you want to keep it under 500 employees. Career Shift database is going to help you find within a certain industry all the companies within a certain size. And then you can always filter in location if you'd like.
All right. And in addition to your timeline, thinking through what the options are is equally critical. But keep in mind too, even though the economy may feel it's a little bit tighter these days, it is, especially for some industries. I would still encourage you just to keep applying. The process and time to start is now. And believe it or not, even within Handshake and Indeed, organizations, employers, they're still posting positions, which is good news. And we really do encourage you to keep your head held high, keep applying. If you don't apply for a position, then you definitely wouldn't find a position. So try to browse through those tools that Lisa had mentioned earlier and keep moving forward, keep applying for those jobs. And then as you're going along, also, it's really important to keep those ideal positions in mind, but maybe also diversify that with a few backup options or alternatives. So it's the same idea. When you applied to college, if you can think back about your college admission process, you probably had what we call reach schools, so the top ideal schools that you do really want to go for. But then also maybe you applied for a couple institutions or universities that were great options as a just in case option in case your ideals didn't come through. Well, the same concept idea can be applied to your job search. So maybe you have that ideal job, definitely shoot for that. You are all talented and qualified for those top positions, but maybe balance that out with a different type of skill set position or a different kind of industry or location. That way you are more likely to find a great opportunity instead of relying on one single position alone. And so what you see down there is the thought process. If you find a full-time job in this specific industry for this specific location, that's good, but maybe it doesn't pan out as your first option. So instead, maybe the thought process is, how do I find any professional full-time job? And a good saying that I like to use is, if your first job will help you develop new skills and help you move forward, and if you can be there for at least 2 years, then it's probably a great first job to take. So essentially, your first job doesn't have to be your ideal job, and that's okay. All right.
So plans B and C. So I think, Joe was talking about, you want to have several different kinds of plans. Plan A could be your ideal job. And maybe on your Excel spreadsheet, your application tracker, you have different tabs open where one tab is for plan A and the other tabs are for plan B and C. And like Joe said, it may not be your dream job, but something to think about is, when do you implement plans B and C? Some people might say, you know what, I'm going to give plan A 2 months. If I'm not getting a lot of responses with my ideal job or my ideal location or industry or type of employer, then I'm going to start implementing B and C. And B and C might be just any particular professional job, and that you can hold for 6 months to a year while you keep looking for something that maybe is closer to what you want to do, but at least you're going to get a full-time job on your resume. And at some point, that tends to be important, to just get a full-time job on your resume. The other thing, as you're thinking about plans B and C, really try to be very flexible. We all know that you guys, you got degrees from Carnegie Mellon, and there's so many different types of positions that you could do, that you want to really flex that part of yourself where you give yourself permission to say, okay, this is what I would love to work in 5 years, but right now I'm okay working in this kind of industry, or I'm okay working at this kind of job. And one of the suggestions to help you flex or to expand what you're thinking for your job possibilities is to read about what's in the news. I know we're all reading about the news, but I mean read about job news. And so you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on your professional organization sites, read articles on what are some hot jobs now, what are some industries that are hiring. And to help you do that, we have this chart. Now, what you want to be careful about, I put on here, it's a candor.co. That's not a /hiring-freeze. It's not a typo, it is CO. And what you have to remember here is that these were posted a little bit earlier on, but they are live and they're posted by users. So these are not employers posting this information. And so what we're seeing are different industries where the green means that they're hiring. The yellow means that they are having some hiring freezes, and red all the way to the right means that they're having layoffs. The percentages that you see, it took me a little while to figure this out, but the percentages that you see is a combination of the yellow and the red. So for instance, in business software, 49% are having freezes and layoffs, but there's still a very large number of hiring. So the size of the green bar shows that they're still hiring. It looks like a lot of numbers as compared to, let's say, design and architecture, where the bar is just, there's not a lot going on in general. They're not doing tons of layoffs, they're not doing tons of freezes, and they're not doing tons of hiring. So this might be a way for you to say, I would love to work in consumer tech, but I'm going to start looking maybe in financial services, or I'm going to start looking in IT if you are able to do that with some of your background. If not, then look where you can pivot. If you're a mechanical engineer and you could go into healthcare, or you could do some IT things where they are hiring a little bit more, let's say, than let's say automobile companies, then that might be something for you to think about, at least at this point.
Okay. So in terms of goals, now how do you approach this strategy? Well, there are a few ways to move forward with that, and that's by creating weekly goals. You may have heard of not only goals, but also SMART goals. Now, I would encourage you to Google search the acronym SMART goals. That's a great way to develop your own objectives throughout this job search, and we're happy to share more information about what a SMART goal is. But let's say for you, you have various goals that you want to achieve that will help you to continue moving forward. So what you see here are just general samples and ideas of what goals you may want to put on your target for every week. And again, just like your job search, your goals are up to you, and I would focus on whatever you want to achieve for that week. So maybe it's applying to 10 organizations, maybe it's contacting 10 alumni or classmates or family members through LinkedIn or on Career Shift, as Lisa was mentioning earlier. Or maybe it's even also following up with 10 organizations that you had applied to that prior last week. Cold calling, emailing 10 organizations. However, unless if the job description says absolutely no phone calls or emails, then definitely do not reach out to those employers. But if there's no disclaimer about reaching out or asking for information and advice, I would encourage you to find recruiters and contact them. So whatever your goal may be for a given week, try to keep yourself moving forward in any small incremental way. So each incremental change is one big change in itself. So keep those goals in mind.
So in terms of your daily schedule, what we suggest is, again, you need to customize this for yourself. You need to figure out when you have higher energy. Is it at 9 a.m. in the morning, which is when I have high energy? Is it at noon? Is it in the evening? Figure that out. And then what we usually suggest is to schedule your least favorite task for your highest energy time. And I'll give you an example of that. I used to do fundraising, and I did not like making cold calls to alumni. I was fundraising for scholarships for students, and I didn't like making those calls, but I loved going out on the appointments to ask alumni to help create some scholarships. So I would procrastinate all day because I would say, oh, I don't even know who I'm going to call. So what I devised is a schedule like this. I knew I was real high energy right when I came into work. So in the afternoon, I would do all my research. I'd find 10 alumni that I needed to call, and I'd leave the list on my computer. So when I came into work the next day, that's the first thing I promised myself I would do. I'd make those 10 phone calls. I hated every minute of it, got it over and done with. And then I was able to go on and do all my other tasks for the rest of the day. So figure out what you like, what you don't like. And sometimes you will have to make yourself do some things that you don't like. And you'll, work your way around it so that you don't mind doing everything. The other thing that we suggest is try not to make yourself so stressed out that you have to feel that you are searching 8 to 10 hours a day. You do need to build in some relaxation, some exercise, fun, just some downtime so that you can concentrate when you are doing the actual search.
All right. And so to Lisa's point, here is a sample daily schedule that may look similar to your own. So as you can see here, first and foremost, if you want to exercise in the morning or in the afternoon, or whatever works for you, self-care is very critical. So taking care of yourself with sleep, rest, exercise, breakfast, that's your first and foremost critical piece of this schedule. And then maybe around 10 a.m., you're cold calling, whether that's email or by phone, to a campus recruiter or maybe to a professional contact to gain advice. And then maybe around 10:30, you're following up on 2 applications from last week or whatever you had applied for. Taking some time for lunch, finding 2 new opportunities that have recently been posted and applying for those. Taking again some free time for yourself, and maybe wrapping up your day by reaching out to 5 alums or family members, friends, whoever's in your network who could be relevant to your overall goal. And as you can see here, the saying is true that searching for a job really is a full-time job, and that's pretty normal. So that whole process can feel and be overwhelming. So it's best to break down those steps incrementally into each individual day. So as you can see here, we only have 2 options or 2 openings that you may want to apply for versus trying to apply for 10 in one day, or maybe only making a couple phone calls instead of trying to make 20 cold calls. So again, keep it very manageable for yourself by breaking down each step along the way in more incremental ways. So there you have it. Here's a sample schedule.
And as you can tell, this is definitely a process. It's a journey, and we encourage you to try to stay motivated. We hope that the Excel spreadsheet or Google Drive, whatever you use, or the Google Sheet that you use, will help keep you motivated, keep a track of your search activity, and really record all of your successes, whether you received a response, whether you received a rejection, keep track of when you need to do some follow-up reminders. And along the way, be sure to congratulate yourself, because part of this can get a little daunting. And so you really need to say, you know what, I've been searching for a couple weeks and I don't feel like I've gotten anywhere. If you look at that spreadsheet and you see the 25 activities you've done or applications that you've applied to, you are going to be able to congratulate yourself and say, okay, all right, I'm applying, I'm doing it, just keep going, and just stay on top of it.
All right, and here are a couple daily do and don't reminders for you, a little bit along the same lines as Lisa already mentioned. So don't ask yourself if you feel like searching for today. Do open up the Excel sheet and do the work. It's kind of like exercise. You know, sometimes we don't feel like exercising, but we do it anyway because we know it's very good for us. It'll help with our stress. It'll help us, think more clearly, especially with exercise and nutrition. So with your job search, it's really the same mindset. We know it's good for us. We know it's going to help us long term. So when you're feeling a little bit down and out, still, lead to the task, open up the spreadsheet, and make it work for yourself. And of course, using negative self-talk, that's very common. Try your best to manage the rejection and the waiting time that you're going to be going through to keep moving forward. It's very common for a job search to take anywhere from 2 to 3 months, maybe even 6 months at most. That is very common. It's not because you're doing anything wrong by any means. It's simply because it takes a lot of time for a recruiter to receive your application, to talk it over with their team, to bring you on for an interview. And so when it's all said and done, from the point that you apply to interview to actually accept an offer, that could be at minimum at least a couple months, and that's very normal. So if you've ever applied to something and you're trying to wonder why they haven't reached out to you and it's been a couple weeks, just know that they are working on it. Make sure to follow up, and it can take that time. So hang in there, keep persistent, and good things will come your way.
We wanted to just talk for just a minute or so about rejections. We always talk about the successes, and we don't often talk about rejections, but everyone does receive rejections, and we can promise you we've all received them. What you want to try to do is not to take it personally. They're not rejecting you as a person. They're rejecting your candidacy, and they're thinking maybe this isn't a good fit for you. Definitely keep track of those on your spreadsheet, and you can try to analyze why. You may never know for sure, but you can try to analyze why. What we do say is if you are applying to lots of places and you feel that you've been applying to really a good fit for you types of positions, then it could be a problem with your materials, your resume or cover letter. If you're getting some interviews and you're not getting offers, then what you need to start looking at are your interviewing skills, and maybe you need to polish those up a little bit. So definitely try to analyze and see if there is a pattern to where or why you're getting rejected. Again, your career consultant could help you with that. Also know that sometimes you just may not know why, but you have to trust the recruiter to know that it may not be a good fit at this time, at this company for this type of position. And it does sound a little bit cold, but you just need to move on. Everyone's going to get them, so move on to your other applications, and you will find a better fit or a good fit.
Okay, so we thought we'd take a moment to kind of share our stories about rejections as well. We do want to add a little bit of a human component to our presentation, and even us, myself and Lisa, as career consultants, we're not immune to the challenges of a job search strategy. It can be very difficult. It does take a long time. So we want to kind of, by way of encouraging you, share our own stories. So specifically for me, here at Carnegie Mellon, I've been here for going on 2 years now. I just passed my 2-month anniversary, which is great. But in that whole search process, in order for me to get here to Carnegie Mellon in my current role, I actually applied for 40 positions. And out of those 40, I only received 7 interviews. And from those 7, only 2 job offers. So as you can see, it takes a high level of frequency in order to get just a handful of interviews. And even from those interviews, they're not going to go perfectly well, or maybe the match just wasn't there. So even from those 7, I may only get 1, or maybe not even 1 job offer. So as you can see here, it does take a little bit of time. The higher education industry may be a little bit different compared to what your industry of interest is. So the whole purpose is that rejection is real. So keep moving forward.
And then for my story, I wanted to get out of fundraising and I was applying for positions and I was getting rejected. I was not getting any interviews. So I decided to do an informational interview with someone who was in the actual industry that I wanted to get into. And they told me that I really needed to get a different kind of graduate degree in order to get in the field of higher education and career counseling, which is what I did. So I had to go back to school part-time in the evenings and do that. And then when I got my other degree, what I did to get the job, and I don't tell people to do anything that I haven't done myself, but I networked. And I contacted a lot of people in the field of career services, and I ended up talking with a friend of mine who I've been friends with since elementary school. And she was friends with someone who it was in career services who had not responded to me when I just reached out in a cold call. And so she reached out to her, and then I reached out to the friend of a friend who then reached out to someone at CMU who was working in the career center, who then sent my resume on to her boss. And that's how I got the interview. So it was a friend of a friend of a friend. So don't, I know a lot of students say to me, Lisa, I don't know anyone in X field or so-and-so location or industry. And you might not, but really think about who you do know and then keep going out further from that, which is what LinkedIn will help you with, by the way. So we're wrapping up a little bit here and think about some questions you might have. But what we're hoping is to increase your success, really try to stay positive along the way because it can get a little frustrating. Be flexible in the kinds of positions that you're looking for or location or industry. Be a little bit creative, look in the news and try to find some different things that, hey, maybe you didn't think you could do, but you really could do those types of positions for a little bit. Keep your energy high as you're doing your search. Do whatever it takes, whether it's exercise or relaxing with friends or some Zoom chats or just get outside and keep your energy up and be very patient with yourself because this search is a marathon and that means it can be long. It's not a sprint and we want you to really pace yourself and keep going and don't just say to yourself every day, oh, is today the day? Just keep doing the job in terms of your job search. Keep pulling out that spreadsheet. Keep going along with the timeline and with your schedules that you set up. And it will work. We promise you it will work.
And then finally, here are a few key takeaways about next steps or how to get in touch with us. So as a reminder, as Lisa mentioned earlier, we're more than happy to meet with you about your resume, your cover letter. We can even facilitate a mock interview for you, whether it's just general questions or even a behavior-based interview. Also brainstorming more employers or industries, we can help you do that as well. And if you go into Handshake under the Career Center menu tab, that's in the right top corner of Handshake. From that drop-down menu, you can click on appointments and that'll bring up the entire calendar of your specific career consultant. So just find a time that works for you and we'd be happy to meet with you. We are still doing appointments via Zoom or by phone, so we're happy to meet with you. And keep in mind, we're here all year round. Even for alumni, you have access to our services for free at no charge for a lifetime. So alumni services, they do not go away. Pretty much the same services you had as a student still continue today. And that even includes our job fair events. So if you wanted to attend a fall recruiting event in the fall, whether it's an info session or Encompass, whatever that may be, you can have access to that through Handshake.
So we did get a question in the chat about should you contact every recruiter for each job that you apply to. Let me mention this slide because we are talking to you a little bit about some upcoming career events, and I will answer that, by the way. But we do have some really great things coming up. One is that we do have a job search success group for each college, and some of the colleges are going to be by schools or majors, depending. You will get an email from your career consultant with a link for Zoom. We're hoping these job search success groups will really allow students, for you guys to help each other, for you to say what's working, what isn't working, and to support each other along the way. We found the peer-to-peer tends to be very successful, so it's not going to be us telling you what to do, although we're more than welcome to, we can give advice. We're hoping you guys will help each other along the way. The other thing, a week from today, we have another event coming up called Get Your Foot in the Door and Reaching Out to Professionals. And we will be talking during that event about how to network, how to follow up with professionals using LinkedIn and many other, or several other resources to help you with that process. To answer that question, though, about should you follow up, I recommend following up for every single application that you put in. Give it about a week to 10 days and try to find someone to follow up with, unless they explicitly say on the posting, no phone calls or emails, in which case you're not going to be able to do that. But other than that, I would try to follow up with an alum. I'd follow up with a recruiter. You can find those on LinkedIn. You can find them on CareerShift, and you can reach out by phone or by email. And everyone has different ideas about how to do this, but I write them something that says, I've applied, or I applied last week, and I'm writing to follow up. I wanted to let you know that I'm still very interested, and I'd love to know if you have a timeline when you're hoping to start reaching out to candidates for interviews, and please let me know if you have any other questions. So pretty brief, but it really can't hurt. You don't want to stalk them. You don't want to follow up every day or every week, but you do want to reach out to let them know that you're excited.
Yeah, and also on top of Lisa's point, there's a great tool within LinkedIn. Some of you may have already used it. It's called the LinkedIn Alumni tool. And specifically, every institution across the country or globe even maybe has a alumni LinkedIn tool. And so it's much better sometimes to not only find campus recruiters, but try to connect with alumni who have something in common with you, being your alma mater. So again, if you want to learn more about how to find those campus recruiters on LinkedIn, or even using the alumni LinkedIn tool, feel free to schedule time. We're happy to go through for you. Okay. All right, now to kind of bring us to an end, I know we're running out of time, but we do want to pose 3 more rhetorical questions for you to think about to help you steer the course forward. And so here are 3 questions we want to ask you. So I'll give you a moment to either screenshot these or jot them down, but think about these questions for the next week and what they mean to you. So one specifically, what will your day look like? And not only that, but what's your ideal function? What energizes you? What motivates you? What's the ideal day, and what does that look like in terms of an occupation or a position? And specifically, the answer to that question can help you narrow down what it is and isn't that you should be searching for. Here's another rhetorical question. What is the hardest part of the search for you? So again, as Lisa was mentioning earlier in her portion, whatever is the most difficult is probably the one thing you should start with first. That way, that momentum and that confidence will help propel you forward to focus on other things that are part of the process. And then finally, our last question, if you knew that each email and application would be successful, who would you email or reply to? So what is that dream? What is the ideal scenario? So whatever that may be for you, think about that, jot that down, and allow that answer to kind of steer you and narrow you down, or narrow your focus down to a specific position, industry, company. So those are 3 questions. Screenshot those, think about those throughout the week, even bring those thoughts with you to your career consultant appointment, and we can help you brainstorm that.
Hey, Joe, can you grab this link? And
oh, yes, I can.
And someone wanted that and put that in the chat. For you also can go into Handshake, by the way, and under events, and you should be able to find this event in Handshake and click on it and register for this link for this particular webinar next Monday. The other
I just put the link in the chat box for everybody.
Thank you. We also had another question. Is it okay to apply to more than one position, multiple positions in a company? Joe, you want to?
Yeah, I think, again, this is one of those questions where you may get varying opinions or answers. I actually say yes. So I would say I wouldn't apply to too many within the same company. But if you feel that you have found 2 or 3 positions that are pretty relevant to each other or pretty similar, I think that's okay to express interest and apply for a couple within the same organization. Oftentimes, though, that could become more of a concern when you apply to positions that may not relate to each other. So, for example, let's say you are applying to a specific company and one job is within sales, but another job is within computer science. Well, from that perspective, the recruiter or human resources may think, well, they're just applying for anything. So they don't seem too entirely focused. So that kind of approach may not work for you. But if you were to apply for the same company, a computer science, software engineering job, or maybe a user experience position, I could definitely see how those two share similarities. They may relate in some way. So in that case, that should be fine. So as long as you are being really intentional with your search, employers do look for that. So intention is really, really the main takeaway here.
We did get some questions prior to the webinar. Is there any of those, Joe, that you want to?
Yeah, in terms of virtual fairs, off the top of my head, I'm not recalling any currently coming up for the summer for alumni. I know we have some career consultants online right now, so if Lisa or the other consultants, if you know of any, feel free to put them in the chat box. And I'd be happy to do more research in our follow-up as well. So if I find some, we can send those to you.
And we can definitely send, I can send a link so that you can see this online, that this is being recorded, and I can send you a copy of the Google Slides, anyone who attended this. So if you have other questions, I know we did get some questions ahead of time. Someone asked about a specific timeline for an internship search versus a job search. There's not a big difference. You should start as soon as possible. And what that means is if you're looking for an internship for next summer, there's no harm in getting things ready right now over the summer. And then you could start applying, I'd say, in the fall and in the spring for next summer. If you're doing a job search, obviously, if you're looking for a job right now, just start right now. But we usually say starting 1 or 2 semesters before you want to start your job, that's a good timeline.
Yeah. And we also had another question: how can we leverage our alumni connections in our network? So yes, it is true. Alumni are great resources for helping you to get connections or referrals within various organizations. So I would encourage you to reach out to alumni. So again, Lisa and I are consultants. We can show you how to use CareerShift and the alumni tool in LinkedIn. But then also, if you Google, I'm going to put in the chat box for you, if you search CMU Community, there it is. The first link that should appear in your search results should be CMU Community. And that is Carnegie Mellon's official directory or tool for finding alumni across the globe. So there are multiple ways to get in touch with alumni. I think really the key is just to simply introduce yourself, make the case for why you're reaching out, and having some kind of call to action. So when you're reaching out saying, I would love to talk with you more or have coffee with you about XYZ topic, however, whatever your call to action is, making sure there's some kind of takeaway when you're messaging them. So CMU Community, that's a great tool. Happy to share more.
Great. Well, if you all have other questions, feel free to email Joe or myself or your career consultant, because like we've been mentioning along the way, we really are here to help you. We'll help you with a customized search and with any questions. You can always just email us. It doesn't have to be through a specific formal appointment that you schedule in Handshake. Just reach out and ask a quick question, and any of your consultants will respond. So thank you all. I really appreciate you attending, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.